How do we evaluate information? Well, disinformation is arguably a lot easier to identify and sort of chuck out as patently false, as opposed to other types of junk information or fake news, which is fact-based but biased and selective in its presentation of material. So, if you're going to make a quick evaluation and you want to sort out the disinformation, you want to ask yourself, am I looking at something that's clearly misleading and overtly biased? There's a strategy that's called lateral reading that's very useful. Now, lateral reading means reading across multiple sources, and this is basically a fact-checking sort of strategy, as opposed to engaging in deep reading of a single source. Now, there's a very popular recent lateral reading method that was developed by a man named Mike Caulfield, who works in online learning and media literacy at Washington State University, Vancouver. So Caulfield's method of lateral reading and fact-checking is called the SIFT method. So SIFT is an acronym, and each letter stands for a different move or action or step that you're supposed to take. So you'll sometimes also hear this referred to as the 4 moves method. So the acronym SIFT, we'll go through it step by step. So S stands for stop. That means that you're supposed to stop what you're looking at. Before you read the whole thing and make an opinion, you want to do the lateral reading. So you want to take a moment to engage in that source evaluation. Now, this is especially true if you find yourself having an emotional reaction to that headline. It really means you should stop and do this fact-checking first. So I is for investigate the source. Now, what Caulfield recommends that you do is run a web search on the publisher and the author to get a sense of their reputation, their background. Do they have any obvious biases or ideological bents that they're promoting? And Wikipedia articles are actually usually quite reliable and good for giving you a pretty accurate snapshot of this. So by using Wikipedia, you can actually accomplish this step quite quickly. F is for find trusted coverage. That means you want to run a web search on the topic of the article in order to find coverage from other sources. What you want to know is how widely is this claim being reported? Are there well-known and reputable sources out there that are reporting on the same thing? Really, you kind of want to see, is there general consensus on this topic, or is there a disagreement on it? Now, T is for trace, for tracing claims, quotes, and media back to the original source. So this is where you're going to try and find the original context and see if it's being accurately represented in the article that you're looking at. So you want to trace back any references in the article, any quotes. If there's media or an image, you can maybe do like a reverse media search reverse image search to see if that media has been doctored in some way. What you want to know is this a snippet that's being taken out of context? Is it an outright fake? So the SIFT method can tell you whether or not a source is generally credible and whether or not it's worth your time to read the whole thing, or if you're just looking at what's an obvious piece of disinformation. So these lateral reading and fact-checking strategies, they're part of an overall approach to making sense of information and understanding the world around us. Now, it can help you filter out disinformation and give you a sense of what credible sources are worth your time. My personal approach to understanding the world, insofar as it relates to keeping up with the news, is that I want to identify a small handful of reputable independent authors and news organizations that are reporting on issues, in particular those that I care about, and that they're using an approach and a methodology that makes sense to me, that they're bringing in multiple viewpoints, that they're not being overly ideological. I also think that if you're a news junkie or an addicted social media scroller, probably one thing you would want to do to help with your information evaluation skills is actually back away and consume less information. So information overload, when we get overwhelmed with so much information coming in, we lose our ability to just stop and think and reflect. And that sort of critical thinking is really what is ultimately going to help us be better evaluators of information.